Hey guys, it's Coach Gaglione from GaglioneStrength.com. We got another strong lady on the line tonight. How's it going, Natalie?
Good, how are you?
Good. So for those people watching who don't know who you are, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on right now?
Yeah, my name's Natalie Hanson. I'm a USAPL 84 kilo lifter. I lift both raw and equipped. I've been powerlifting for 3 years, but kind of four because I started powerlifting without really starting. I started competing before I was training powerlifting. So I'm currently training in equipment for a meet on January 28th. But I just came off of Raw Nationals in Atlanta with a third place finish, and yeah, so that's
Very cool. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. So I want to kind of rewind a little bit, and can you tell us a little bit about actually how you started training, in general, not necessarily maybe powerlifting, but when was the first time you got a barbell in your hands, and what kind of got you started with actually strength training?
yeah. I was an athlete my whole life in a small town in rural Alaska, so I played varsity volleyball and basketball. And we didn't have a weight room in my hometown. That doesn't exist. There's a tiny little closet in our high school that has cable machines that we would mess around with when we were supposed to be lifting. We would max out the cable leg press machine and stuff, but that was the extent of my weightlifting until I got to college. Um, I started college just playing club volleyball, but I was always interested in lifting weights, and so I'd go to the rec center gym by myself, and I would lift weights in the freeway area. I had no idea what I was doing, and I would love to go back in time and watch myself because I distinctly remember doing things like taking the 45-pound dumbbells and doing shrugs with them. But I was not in. I didn't know what I was doing. So anyway, I just was thinking about that the other day, how silly that was, because people were probably what's going on here? This is before CrossFit was big. It's before powerlifting was big. So when I was a senior in college, that's when CrossFit started blowing up. And one of my friends who had been doing it for a while, she got me, it took her a year to convince me, but she finally convinced me to try CrossFit. And I was always this is the stupidest thing ever. Because she'd come home with she wasn't able to extend her arms because they were so sore from so many pull-ups and push-ups and stuff. And I was no, I'm not doing that. But eventually I did. And I got hooked, just like most people do when they first start CrossFit. Full 100% sold on it, went full paleo, CrossFit mode. I thought everything else in the world was silly, and CrossFit's the way. And then, and I was always I started off strong, and everybody in the gym was always just what? I squatted 205 pounds for sets of 5, my first time ever squatting with a barbell. And I was I don't know what this means, but okay. And I just did it. And they were always you would be a really great Olympic weightlifter. And I'm I don't know. I like CrossFit. So then I injured my back, doing some 1 rep max thruster. It was the first time I had an injury in a sport that sidelined me for a significant amount of time. And that's the first time I've ever realized my back might not be the healthiest that I could have. So I was out, I was limited on my movements for 5 months. And nobody could ever really explain to me what I did to my back. They were just kind of somebody told me I had a spondylolysis, and they thought it was something I was born with, but then it was just flaring up. Other people were don't lift ever again, find a new hobby, that kind of thing. So eventually I got my courage up to go back to lifting heavier. And that's about the time that I moved back to Alaska from Boise, where I went to school. I had finished school and stuff, moved back to Anchorage, joined the CrossFit gym here. And I think maybe it was just kind of the fresh start. It wasn't, this environment wasn't didn't have this where my injury happened kind of thing in it. And I was got more courageous. And so I started pushing it a little bit more. And I realized the strength was still there. So I did CrossFit at this gym here in Anchorage for 2 years. But every time, and I was one of the most competitive females in the gym. We went to regionals as CrossFit Alaska, stuff like that. But every time we did a WOD, I was always just God, I wish they'd put more weight on the bar. Like, this is so annoying. Why don't we get to like show our stuff when we're strong? And I was always like too heavy to be like really good at gymnastics. So I'd fatigue quickly doing gymnastics, but then the weights were never heavy enough for my liking. So I knew that something with like more load was going to be my jam. I just couldn't quite like accept it yet. I did my first powerlifting meet in November of 2011, but like I didn't know anything. I didn't know the rules. I knew I was going to squat, bench, and deadlift, and I knew like that I should be able to do my openers for like comfortable sets of 5. That was kind of what I was told. So I trained CrossFit and like maxed out the 3 lifts like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I competed on Saturday, and I weighed in like 163, and I missed my first 2 squats on commands because I didn't even know that these were a thing. Like they were like, wait for the commands, and I was like, the what? And then for whatever reason, I went up. So I ended up squatting 115 kilos on my 3rd squat, 253. I benched like 75 kilos, 165, and then I pulled 303, so 137 and a half. And won best lifter, and I was just kind of like, I don't even like know what any of this means. Priscilla Ribic drug tested me.
Nice.
This is so embarrassing. So Priscilla Ribic, she's like, I'm going to drug test you. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I have to watch you. And I'm like, okay. I don't even know who she is. Like, no idea. And, and I tell her this to this day. And she like signs this piece of paper, one of the drug testing forms. And it was like a really like cool signature. And I was like, dang, that's like a celebrity's autograph. And she just like looks at me and smiles and then just like continues on. Just like, like when I figured out who she was a few weeks later, I was like, oh my God. So that was my first meet.
Couple world records and stuff. No big deal.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. She was like one of the referees, and I was just like totally oblivious, like just kind of like in my own world, and not totally entertained by the sport at first, because I was like, this is like just kind of what I want to do in my side time. Like I was so devoted to CrossFit.
Right.
But then I continued to do CrossFit, and then the next spring, I was still a junior lifter at the time. And the next spring I like there was a meet coming up, the state championship, and I knew I was like in the running for some junior American records if there were the right judges at the meet and if I didn't like totally screw it up. So I went on to do my second meet, and I set like the squat, bench, and total junior American records in the 165 class. And that's when I was more like, okay, like this wasn't so easy. Like I had to squat 297. I benched 192, and I think I pulled 336 or something. I can't remember what the total was, but then I was like, oh, like that was kind of hard to get. Like I could do this. And then I, started looking at more numbers like further down, and then I was like, that's a challenge. At first it was just kind of like, this isn't hard enough, because it was very, very small in Alaska at the time, and Raw was like just starting sort of. So, yeah, so that's how I got started. And then we went to CrossFit Regionals that spring. I went on a team. And then basically the end of Regionals was like my like retirement from CrossFit. And I like transitioned fully over to powerlifting to go to Raw Nationals that summer. Cool. So that's the start. I think it was like June 1st, 2013 is like my start date.
if it makes you feel any better, my first meet I missed my squat command too. So
yeah, I mean, you see it too. Like still to this day, no matter how many people like first meet lifters, I'm like, just listen for your commands. Like, do you know what the commands are? And they're like, yeah. And then you watch them go out there and just totally forget. And I'm like, maybe it's just it's like a rite of passage. Like you just kind of have to. Oh
yeah, and like I knew all the rules too, which is great. I'm like, yeah, I got it, and then I just went down and just like
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
man, it's all good. You live and you learn.
Yeah.
So obviously it seemed like you got into CrossFit, you were an athlete. Now, like I said, you just took 3rd place at World Nationals. You're like a really accomplished equipped lifter now too. Even I think like you do some judging too, right? You do some
at state level, yeah.
Cool. So like you're really involved. So like, what was there like a defining moment where you're like, I really want to take this more serious and to really put like more time and effort into like competing not just at a local level but at a national level and really kind of like take just take it just really give it 100%.
Yeah, it was when I got my ass kicked at Raw Nationals 2013. I always walked around at like 165, and then when I started powerlifting only, my body just wanted to gain weight, but I was trying to cut down to the 72 kilo class. So here I'm like getting ready to do my first national meet, like my first like big meet. It was my last time, like last nationals being a junior. I was still going to age out before Worlds, but I wanted to like set these, reset the records I had set that spring.
Sure.
So I like did not know how to cut. I didn't know what I was doing. I starved myself for like a month. Managed to make weight some miraculous way. My brother he was a D1 wrestler, so we did like a wrestling cut to make weight because I couldn't get my weight off. Like my body had completely plateaued, like my metabolism like shut down. I went like 5. Matt Gary was coaching me at the time, so like attempt selection, it wasn't like we knew what we were doing, but I still only went 5 for 9. And then Chelsea Savitt, who's now like my business partner and really good friend, she just wiped the floor with me. And after that, I think it was taking that like brutal beating when I thought I was like, I don't even really think I have competition here. And I was like, oops. That was really what like lit a fire under my butt and made me want, like I qualified for the Arnold from that meet, and I told Matt like I want to do this, and he's like, okay, well then you really have to do it. And I was like, I'll do it. And he's like, okay. And then like a couple months later, I was like, I think I want to go up a weight class. He's like, thank you. But yeah, that was when it was. It was getting my first like real solid butt kicking.
Cool.
Yeah.
And just kind of going, I know, so now you're kind of sitting more comfortably in like the next like weight class up. Do you have any? I see this all the time with like girls starting out with, they always want to drop a weight class. They always want to go down, even like for their first meet. They want to cut. They want to. What advice do you have for girls that maybe if they're not really sure like what weight class they should be in, or if they just maybe are looking to cut weight for their, they're a newer lifter and they're looking to cut or kind of keep their body weight down. What advice can you give them?
Don't. Just like because when I was struggling to get to 72, I had all these numbers, like long-term numbers in my head, like, oh my God, these numbers would be amazing to get. I don't know that I was ever going to get them because I was just so starved. I was going to like completely burn myself out. Yeah. And I went up a weight class and literally like put 40 pounds on my squat in a couple of months just because my body was finally like in like equilibrium, and I was like recovering, and my training was like very optimal at that point. It was like such relief, and it gave me a whole new like love for the sport because one, I just could eat whatever I wanted and it was so much more enjoyable. I could live my life. I could like socialize and do whatever I wanted, and then I could also train, and then my numbers were going up. I consistently hit PRs, like stuff like that. I just think there's a time and a place for the weight cut. It's really hard for me to advise anyone to cut hard or to like diet hard year round. Like this just not. So for example, my friend Chelsea, who is a 72 kilo lifter, she will pretty much eat whatever she wants throughout the year. And then when she's like 8 weeks out or so, and she'll walk around like pretty heavy, like 8 weeks out, then she starts to diet, and she diets down, and she has like figured out the cut to get right at 72. And I think that's the way that you should do it. Like because so many people just completely like drown themselves in dieting, and like for this sport, it's a hobby at the end of the day too. There's competitive reasons where you could, like cutting weight seems smart, but if you're just like an average lifter, not going for any like world records or American records, I think that it's just, you should just look for personal improvement. And a lot of times like dieting year round is going to make you like mentally not healthy, and it's going to be a lot less fun.
Yeah, I think if it's impacting your health, you're not having fun, your weights are kind of plateauing, those are kind of all signs that maybe you got to like let your body grow a little bit, increase your calories. Because at the end of the day, you are an athlete. You got to fuel your body, right? If you're not kind of getting that fuel, you're never going to perform as well. And I think, like you said, you kind of hit the nail on the head. If you're like only a couple of meets in, or if it's definitely your first meet, like it's like you're not going to be like super competitive, like either way. Like why kill yourself? Just have fun with it. Go for PRs, and then maybe you get to the point where maybe you're going to be nationally ranked, or maybe you're going to qualify for like a higher level meet, like the Arnold or something like that. Well, then then we can maybe talk about like trying to figure out that optimal weight class. But yeah, especially for your first meet, just have fun with it, enjoy it, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with letting your body grow. I think sometimes people get caught up with the number on the scale too. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, like how you kind of mentally, like, because like, I don't know, I think every like person has, guys and girls maybe have like a certain number in their head, which is acceptable for them. But like, is there, how do you kind of or, did you ever have any issues with like kind of when your weight was going up initially, and how has your kind of mindset changed like over the years, like, being more comfortable with the scale number kind of going up and still being comfortable with your body and everything else?
Yeah. Initially, I really didn't. Like when I first did that, when I first like got the email from Matt Gary that like told me, yeah, go up a weight class, I just went for it. And I was so happy, and I think my training started going so well that I couldn't, like, I just didn't really care. Obviously, like, getting closer to meets for me, it gets a little bit, like, I want to be, like, close to my weight class, and if I'm heavier than I normally am, it kind of is stressful. But earlier in my life, like, 100%, I was always heavier. Like, I was always I don't even remember being, like, less than 150 pounds in my, like, ever, in my, teenage to adult life. And so when I was doing CrossFit and I was heavier, my CrossFit coach would always be like, it wouldn't hurt to lose 10 pounds. And I'm like, I can't do, like, my body doesn't work well down there. Like, it just doesn't, it's not comfortable. I think that we have a tough situation because we're competing in a weight class bound sport, and aesthetics aren't the focus, but society gets us like so wrapped up in aesthetics and how we look and how we should look that I've heard people say like, I can't believe you weigh 185 pounds. Like, you're only 5'3". And I'm like, I probably would have said the same thing, 3 years ago. Like, I would have been like, I'm never, ever going to be that heavy. But now that I'm here, like, I have abs sometimes. Like, and so you would never know unless you try, unless you just kind of like go out there and go for it. Your body and your mind, I think, will like adapt to the numbers. Like for a while it was like, oh my gosh, if I'm above 170, like it's really bad. It's scary. Now I'm like, I guess 200 is like the scary number. Like, I don't know. But over time you just kind of like learn to accept the number. And I think that taking breaks from weighing yourself can be helpful, but as long as you're like having healthy habits during that time, so you're not just like stepping on the scale and being like 30 pounds heavier, because that could be kind of traumatic. I don't know. It's a very, very like fragile, like kind of concept, especially with women, and especially because as powerlifters, we're going to have more mass than the general public. Yeah. So we're going to, hang out with our friends who aren't powerlifters. I'm 100% the biggest one in the room. And by the next biggest girl is 20 pounds lighter than me. And so when weight starts coming up, it's just I don't even I just kind of laugh, and I don't really even contribute because people they just have no concept for it. Yeah. So I actually I was at trivia night a couple weeks ago, and there was a clip from some comedy, comedy act it was old, and it was a woman who was the character of the woman was fat, and she was explaining to her, the person in the scene, how she's I'm 180 or 185 pounds. I had my stomach stapled and I'm 185. And I was like, to me, so you think about that kind of situation, and powerlifting, to me, it feels like we're transcending the social norms of like body weight and stuff. But we also do live in like this little like niche world. But I would love to be able to like belt from the rooftops, like, I'm almost 200 pounds, like, deal with it, you know?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I think sometimes, like, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a number, and that doesn't kind of measure, like, how healthy you are or how much body fat you're carrying or how much muscle mass. And like you said, it's like, you know, there's a healthy 185 and then there's an unhealthy, like, 185.
Yeah.
And just because you're a certain height, too, like, I know, like, for, you know, my weight fluctuates a lot, but I remember, like, the doctor was like, you know, you should weigh 135. And I'm like, I haven't weighed 135 since, like, elementary school, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, if you took my lean mass is like well into the 200. So it's like not actually like possible unless like I actually, you know, lost like muscle or bone tissue. But
Yeah. I think also it has to do with happiness and like where you are
where you're comfortable
mentally. Like,
yeah.
I think that like something I really try to explain to people is like, just because, so I want to like tell people like accept where you are in like your journey. Like that word journey is kind of silly, but like in your career or in your like in the pursuit of your goals, like accept where you are today. Like don't always be looking at tomorrow. So that can also apply to anybody like on a weight loss journey, because it's not that we're not striving to be healthier, better people or for this end goal, but I'm not always just like, I can't wait for, you know, how I look in 4 weeks once I've dieted down a little bit more. Like, just be happy with where you are today and like accept it.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's great advice. You got to be comfortable in your own skin. So no matter like what the scale number says or whatever the weight is. Cool. So next question I always like to ask is, have you ever kind of had any adversity with your training, any setbacks, like, you know, in your life? And if so, like, how did you kind of overcome it?
Oh man, this year's been crazy. So, I did Equip Nationals in May. My training cycle leading up to Nationals was like phenomenal. Like it could not have gone better. My numbers put me at like in a place where I thought I was going to contend to potentially win on if I had a really good day and my competition had a not good day, which I would never like hope that she has a bad day, but you know, if it worked out that way, yeah. Like I could have won. But on my second deadlift, I hurt my back, and like immediately I heard like this. I felt a weird feeling, like a weird like pop kind of feeling. I dropped the bar and walked off the platform, and come to find out, I had 3 protruding discs in my back. And it was probably like, I probably had some sort of protrusions before, but I just like made them worse at that point. So I was like pretty messed up, and I obviously like I couldn't pull my third deadlift. On top of that, I dealing with grad school, so I came that. I was took a painkiller immediately that happened. Took it and was water drug tested, and I failed the drug test. So,
oh wow.
So here I am, like so injured. I can't walk. Like my deadlift suit's like down around my waist, and people are like bringing scissors to cut it off, and I'm like, don't cut it off. It's my only suit. Like I'm gonna be back. Like, you know, I love this deadlift suit, and but I'm like in hysterics. They drug tested me. I couldn't even like bend down to like pee in the cup. Like it was really, really bad. So I came up, the drug test came up as positive for a narcotic. I had an injured back. I was finishing grad school at the time. Like I just finished in August, but I was actually in my hardest class of my grad school career. And my supervisor here at my job had just left, and I was like the acting executive director. So I had like a lot of stuff going on all at the same time. And then normally training would be my outlet. and I'd be able to just like go to the gym and like forget about all the bullshit outside and just like, you know, like just kind of get away. But I couldn't really because I was so injured. And, you know, I was squatting like a plate very, very carefully, very uncomfortably, benching with my feet up, like just trying to like get work done. And then, so yeah, then that all, like, I obviously didn't know about the drug test failure until like 6 weeks later. And then I explained, like, I had taken it after scratching my third deadlift. I was, you know, just like in this crazy, like, it was like such a blur. And like, I think back and it feels like it was like blacked out. Like, I just remember being like face down on the floor, like not able to move. And, you know, I explained to the anti-doping hearing committee, like, my side of the story, how I didn't intend to cheat. That was not, like, I just wanted to have some relief from the pain I was in. And I only got a warning, which was nice. But my meet results were, you know, canceled out or whatever. And I lost all records I've set in the past 2 years.
Wow.
Which is a new rule they just implemented. Yeah, they just implemented that rule at the NGB at that meet. So that was like, I was like the first one to get handed down that ruling, probably. So anyway, this summer was like really crazy to me. I finished grad school in August. I was supposed to do the NAPF equipped meet in August as well, but I ended up pulling out from that because obviously I was just like not in a good place to train. I was not in a good place with work and school. So I survived it though, and I was like, to a point where I was so stressed that I felt it, like, I felt heavy, like, I felt it on my shoulders. Yeah. And, like, when I finally, like, got to a place where school was done, the drug test, like, I just got a warning, my back starting to feel better, like, I remember physically feeling like the weight of the world was off my shoulders. Like, it was, I've never been so stressed that I like didn't realize. I was so stressed that I didn't realize how stressed I was. Like, it was just like, I don't even know if this is like gonna end, and if this is where life is headed. Like, man, this is gonna be lame. But my day, like, it was just like dark days, like just kind of like sad, like lame. But when I got the letter saying like you just got a warning, because, you know, I provided like my side of the story and I admitted to taking it. That's like part of the deal. If you admit it and then tell your story, they like want to give you the benefit of the doubt. It was like truly like I could breathe like a full breath. That's how it was. So I would wake up every morning and just be like, sometimes I would call my mom and be like, I think I'm just going to like drop out of grad school for this, you know, and finish up in this fall. And like, she would just be like, no, like you can't even give yourself that option. Like you cannot even let that enter your mind, because I was like, I mean, the class I was taking was just kicking my butt. And she would just tell me like, just go, like, you just have to get it done. Like, don't give yourself another option. And I did. And I just, just put one foot in front of the other and came to work every day and went to class and just like made it happen and kept training when I, as much as I could. And I like survived. And now I'm done with grad school. I'm like, comfortable at work and everything's good.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the most adversity I've had.
Cool. So what advice do you have for somebody, maybe if it kind of seems like they're getting really overwhelmed, they're getting really stressed, things kind of are spiraling out of control, like what's like is some advice you can give them, and what's like, how did you kind of like change your frame of mind to kind of get through like all that stuff?
Yeah, I would say just like for me, it was surrounding myself with supportive people who I could talk to about it, but then they wouldn't let me dwell on it. I could just like get things off my chest, and then we would move on. And they were there for me. Like I felt like I had an outlet. So that was my mom, and then I had my two best friends. And that was really like on the crappiest of days, I could just like tell them like, here's why I feel like today's the worst. And I would like just kind of let them have it. And they would just be like, yeah, that sounds really crappy, but you got to get it done. And I'm like, okay. So people who are going to push you and not like enable you to just like to just like stay in bed and be depressed and just like just kind of like be defeated.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me. And then just knowing that like you can't let yourself have another option. Like you just have to these are things that for me at least, they were things that like honestly I brought all of them onto myself, and I wanted to get through it. I just wanted to like put one foot in front of the other and like get done, and how like sweet it feels to like get through it, and how you like grow so much, you get to know yourself better, that kind of thing.
Cool. So one thing I always like to ask, and for you I'm going to kind of rephrase the question a little bit, but someone's kind of like on the fence about getting started into lifting and kind of competing in powerlifting. Now in your case, like you also compete equipped, so maybe you could talk about maybe someone's been lifting already and then maybe they want to try something new, maybe they want to try knee wraps, maybe they're not really sure, like they see someone, oh, well, like what's this squat suit, what's this bench shirt, and like what's that all about? Maybe if someone's like kind of like looking to get into powerlifting, maybe they're looking to get into powerlifting gear at some point and just kind of try something different. What advice can you kind of give someone who's starting out, and can you maybe go through your experience of how you kind of got into powerlifting gear for the first time, and like what are some of the differences, what are maybe some of the benefits, or why they would want to do equipped versus raw or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is to ask questions. Like, you're not, like, no question is a stupid question. At the 2014 Arnold, I sat with Matt Gary and Susie Hartwig Gary. They sat on either side of me, and I had never seen, like, I had seen Priscilla train some at this point, but not a whole lot, because I still wasn't training in the same gym as her all the time. So I kind of was still kind of like, this is crazy. I had watched the World Games, the 2013 World Games on the live stream, and I was just like, what in the world is going on? This is wild. So I sat between them, and they just, like, explained it to me. You know, like, why is this girl going up if she missed her opener? That's crazy. And they would be like, well, you know, like, she needs a little bit more weight to hit depth, so, you know, they're going to put 5 kilos on the bar.
Right.
And I just, like, asked some of the stupidest, probably the stupidest questions, but they answered them. And they just told me, you know, very, like, without judging me, they just answered the questions. And I think that's been, I still ask a lot of questions. I'm like, why? Why am I doing this? Like, tell me. And I'm not doing it in a challenging way. I'm doing it in, like, I genuinely want to know. Like, so, if you're, like, interested in trying a suit or something like that, like, just ask, reach out to someone on social media that you see lifting in gear and just say, like, hey, I'm really curious about the wraps you're using. Like, what's the difference between your wraps and this other person's wraps? Or why are you wearing just the bottoms of your suit? Like, just, you know, what questions that you think I might just kind of, like, you know, think are silly, just ask me or ask somebody. So that's what I would say is the number one thing. I think that the transition into equipment is, it's not that hard. Like, a lot of people make it into, like, a lot bigger deal than it is. I would say start with looser gear rather than tight gear. Start with suit bottoms. Start with a loose, like, forgiving bench shirt, like an F6 or something like that. Like, don't start with a low-cut super katana. Like, that's, you know, like, don't do that. Yeah. And just, like, try, you know, you can borrow gear from other people. Like, I've put on, like, suits that were like for big dudes, and I can still feel what it feels like. You know what I mean? Like, if the hips are just snug enough, like, you're still gonna learn a little bit more about how it feels. The first time I ever put a squat suit on was with Larry and Priscilla, and I had only trained around them, like, a couple times before, and so I was really intimidated. And they brought, like, this pink squat suit that was Priscilla's son's. I don't know how much he weighed when he wore it, but it was pretty big. And then wraps. And Larry was like, leave those tights on. I was wearing, like, leggings. He's like, leave those leggings on when he put the suit on. And I was like, okay. And that was probably because he knew Priscilla was just going to, like, annihilate my knees with her wraps. So they put the suit on me, and they put my belt on. They put 4 plates on the bar. Like, I mean, we worked up to it, yeah. But Larry puts 4 plates on the bar. And I think my max squat at the time was, like, mid-3s or so.
So you're like,
And so
are you
he
sure?
like loads up 4 plates, and I'm just like, what are you doing? And he's just like very like, Larry's a very serious guy, and he's just telling me like very simply what to do. Sit your hips back, and then stand it up. And I'm like, all right. So I was really high. Like I just like, totally got scared and stuff. But I was so bruised and like beaten looking from just this loose suit and these really tight wraps. Like it was a really interesting experience, and I thought like I couldn't breathe, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But I would say like just understand that you can fit somebody else's gear like loosely enough that you can get like some kind of effect out of it, and then you can like learn like, oh, this is a size 42, like it's a little bit too big for me, maybe I'd get a 40, and then you can have it taken in. Like there's a lot of tricks to it. But yeah, I mean it's really fun, and it makes you value your technique so much more. I didn't my squat's always been pretty natural to me, but my deadlift and bench technique have not always been awesome. And so when I started training in gear, like that was another, like I could get away with that squat or that bench and deadlift technique though, raw. Like I can just, I was still pretty strong, and I just like let it happen. But now that I'm in training in gear, I put technique raw over strength raw. Like I'm going to like pick myself apart. And that's because I'm like more motivated to like have success in equipment right now. But yeah, it gives you like a whole nother reason to have like perfect technique every time.
Cool. Yeah, I think what I like to kind of explain like equipment, it's almost like you could have a sprinter, you could have a guy like on a bicycle. It's still like a race. It's just like a little more extreme kind of version. That's like a little bit more, like I said, more, so like in the analogy of the race, obviously the guy on the bike's going to go a little faster. If you're in equipment, obviously you have potential to lift more weight, but it doesn't necessarily mean like it's not cheating or anything like that. It's just, it's a different sport. And, it's fun to like handle like something that a weight you've never done before and things like that. It's a different challenge. And, like I said, making sure you're in the right position because, if you don't want to like take a fall or something, or, have a bench dumped on your face or anything like that, it could be, get pretty nasty, but yeah, it's fun. And I think for people who have been lifting a long time, like I lifted, I don't know about you, I lifted for like 5 years before I ever got into any type of gear. And, if you're in this for a long time, like I said, the raw lifting is still kind of new. It's just another challenge. It's another like kind of way that you can kind of experience powerlifting thing. So it's definitely cool. So I appreciate you like sharing your experiences with that. So
I think there's nothing more exhilarating to me. Like I can think and dream all day, all I want about squatting 500 raw, but like nothing makes my like heart pump more than thinking about squatting over 600 in equipment. And like it's just like that's to me like like unracking and walking out a heavy equipped squat is like so terrifying.
Yeah.
But so like just like it just like makes me like so excited. I just wish that, I wish everybody could feel that.
Yeah, it's only something to try, and I'll never walk a weight out, but I'm a monolith guy at heart, but
That's okay.
but definitely standing up with a heavy weight, I can definitely relate to that. It's like I'm not gonna. I don't know how like Blaine Sumner does it. I give him a lot of credit. But
you're like my feet are glued to the floor.
It's like no, we're not moving here.
Yeah, it's crazy that Blaine can walk out 1,100 pounds like that.
I thought like he was gonna die like 3 times like on the way down, but yeah, that's why he's the best.
Yeah.
Well, Natalie, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. It was a pleasure chatting with you today. Where can people find out more about what you're doing or follow some of your lifting?
You can follow me on Instagram. My handle, oh no, I'm going to blank it. My Instagram handle is natalie.907. You can find me on Facebook, Natalie Hanson. I post some of my training on YouTube, but once I get close to a meet, like the good stuff won't be public. But I post like routine training videos. It's not anything super exciting, but you can see me like dying. Sometimes I get pretty dramatic, but yeah. And that's my YouTube is Hanson 907.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for going on. Definitely give her a follow. drop a comment below. And yeah, if this interview helped you, please share it. Please give this podcast a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Thank you.